What's going on, Jersey City Peace? It's bigger than the open mic. I'm Juan. We here today with DAÉ-1. Here at the Delicious Juice Bar in Jersey City, so make sure y'all check him out. We're gonna talk about some things that he got going on in the city, some programs that he has for the community, for the project resources, and all the things that he, as well as his podcast. So he got a podcast out there, so we just gonna chop it up with him, man. So what's good, man? How you feeling today?
I feel good today. I feel highly motivated today. I feel like, I just feel like something good is about to happen. Like when you get in when you feel it in the air when something good is about to happen. And I just feel like something good is about to happen. That's what I feel in the air. I feel like something good is gonna happen. As far as all the good things that we're doing for the community, with my organization, UBO, also known as UBO, we got some big plans this summer. What made me want to do what I do for the community is, growing up, my grandmother, Denise Martin, also known as Top Cat, Marion Gardens Project, she always did things for the projects. And then in the 1970s, my grandmother, alongside with a whole bunch of mothers of the Marion Projects, had a committee to stop the projects from getting knocked down or whatever. They went to DC and everything. So community work run in my blood, and I have a lot of my family members, also my mother and everybody that help my organization. My organization wouldn't be nothing without the mothers of Marion, the youth of Marion, the adults of Marion, and everybody just coming together for a circle to support this movement.
Let's talk about that. Them going to that meeting to stop the projects from being knocked down. How was that? What passed down? What information you got from that?
Yeah, I only got from my grandmother. Back in the day, she was talking about how they was trying to, take away the projects, as well as a lot of low income housing from black people back in those days. They was trying to take away all the urban communities from African Americans, and that's what we just was talking about. I really don't know too much about it because it happened way before I was born. But I know her, Ms. Morris, and a couple other mothers of the Marion Garden Project. They still got their picture in the community center to this day.
Now living in the projects, I lived in the projects, Marion. I grew up there, 8 years of my life, you live there. So how you feel about that whole movement, what they did, preventing that from being knocked down? Do you think it should be knocked down?
No, I don't feel like the community be knocked down, because we knock the community down, where will all the people that live in the community go? I don't feel like the community needs to be knocked down. I just feel like the community needs to be tended to. You know what I'm saying? I feel like the community is only focused around election time. That's to be honest. I feel like the community is only the focus when somebody has a personal agenda, or business agenda, whatever agenda may be. I feel like the community just needs to be tended to, if that makes sense. Like, I just feel like it needs to be tended to. I think the community need more resources. I think the community need more job readiness programs. I feel like the community just needs to be tended to in different ways. You know what I'm saying? That's like growing up in the projects, everybody always asks you what you're gonna be when you grow up, but nobody helps you be what you wanna be, and therefore you become a wannabe. I said that in one of my stories. I feel like, you can't just ask somebody what they want to be. You have to absolutely have the resources to help them. If you don't have the resources to help them, at least provide the motivation, because motivation itself is a resource.
Now you are one of the resources. You're down here, you actually doing the work where you from, and that's hard.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? That's hard. Difficult being in any poverty community or any ghetto, so to say, and people actually respect the work that you're doing. Why do you get some of the respect or the support that you do doing what you do? Why you feel like you changing that?
I feel like I get the respect for doing what I do because I don't force the respect. I feel like when you force the respect, people do their best to counter that, because we from an area, in the urban community where egos are everything, right? Everyone has an ego. If you challenge someone and you forced to have the respect, they're gonna counter you. They're gonna counter what you're saying. They're gonna counter what you're doing. I don't force the respect. Don't get me wrong. You get our days when some of us may bump heads and some of us may not agree on everything, but I don't force it. I let you go cool off, take a little break from you, be a little distant, and you come back to me whenever you're ready.
What are some of the things that you see with your organization, working with the projects, working with other areas of the community? I know you just don't do, just the project. What are some of the things what are some of the things they like that you're doing? And what are some of the suggestions that they have that they need? You feel what I'm saying?
I feel like everybody like events, everybody like trips, everybody like unity. But when it comes to the work, I feel like everybody disagree with that. I feel like growing up in urban communities, we have a tendency of being uncomfortable having certain conversations. When you bring up mental health, that's a hard topic. When you bring up trauma recovery, that's a hard topic, you know, in our communities, because growing up in the houses we all grew up in, we're not open to those conversations. We don't grow up where our emotional well-being is tend to. So when we have those certain conversations, people automatically become uncomfortable.
What's driving, I guess, what drives you to keep doing this every day, regardless of what drives that
I
for?
feel like, you know, what drive me to do it completely because it's my therapy, right? It's not always about just the community. I do this for myself as well. It's my therapy. Like, I feel like if I don't do this, something bad will be happening. I feel like God gives you a calling, right? And when you don't answer that call that God gives you, you're going to find yourself somewhere you don't want to be. And that necessarily don't mean jail. That necessarily don't mean, that's like my great grandmother. She passed away. She was 94 years old in April. She always tell me, I be like, why you always walking up the hill and you over 90 something years old? She used to say, because if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Yup.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like your gift is a muscle. Your muscle had memory, right? Back in the day, you know, I always wanted to be a preacher growing up. So I grew up in Good News Bible Mission. And it goes along with my gift, mentoring and coming together and bringing people together, because I don't look at my organization as just another organization. The reason why I feel like my organization got so much success in a short amount of time, because I run the organization as a church would run it, if that makes sense to you. And I just gave y'all a little secret. I don't know if y'all want to use that, but that's what I do. I run it like how a congregation would be run.
So you said you wanted to be a preacher when you was young. Like, how young and why did you want to be a preacher?
I wanted to be a preacher since I was 7 years old. Like,
7?
You know, a little bit before that, but I actually, you know, grabbed the mic when I was around 7 years old. The reason I always wanted to be a preacher because I could humanize the Bible, right? It's some things I could read something in the Bible, and then I know how to apply that to a real life situation in a way that a person can comprehend it. You know, a lot of people are not biblical, right? So when I read the Bible, when I go to them and humanize it, allows them to see it and it gives people clarity when you humanize it, so to speak. So that's why I wanted to be a preacher, because once I knew that I know how to like speak, and I'm not a shy person. I can speak in a crowded room. It doesn't matter. And people, strangers, always tell me all the time I moved them. Like I was in North. I was at Cornbread eating one Sunday, and this lady, she had a whole conversation with me. And she said, "You have this anointing upon you. I could tell when I talk to you." She don't know me from a can of paint. It's just the gift that I was born with. I think, you know, all gifts that God gives you, every gift can't be explained, but every gift action could be put forth for a gift. But a gift isn't always meant to have an explanation for it, if that makes sense. Sometimes God give us things and we don't understand why we have those things. You know what I'm saying?
And people don't understand the way you walk, you know what I mean, or the direction you step in, because you hear it directly from the source. And even like when, you know, you humanize something, what you said, like with Job, when he was going through what he was going through, because the devil was testing him, his wife, his friends, even, you know, his spiritual buddies,
his wealth.
Everybody didn't understand why he was going through that. Like, even today, people think that people in poverty or people who don't have finances, they think they being cursed rather than blessed, you know, because God put people in different positions, you know, to do the work. You know, God put people in jail. You gotta have people ministering to other people in jail. You got, or allow people to go through that process. You know, God got his people in the churches. God got his people in the schools. You know, I have found out in my life that God's people, he gonna just dark forces and people with demons. They're not always gonna overcome everything. You're gonna have God's people there. You know what I'm saying? Somewhere, some way, you might have them on the corner. So, what are some like stories, I guess, that you humanize and that you could show other people?
I feel like, you know, under pressure, right? I feel like without pressure, some of the things that I do in life, I wouldn't be able to do. I feel like I needed certain experiences, because if I didn't have, so to speak, prison, for example, if I didn't have the prison experience, that's like when you read the Bible, Apostle Paul, all these people, they had the most powerful messages while they were at their lowest. If they know it was at their lowest, they would never had those powerful messages. My message means nothing if I don't have the experience to back up the message. My message means nothing if I don't have the wisdom. You can have knowledge. I always was knowledgeable reading the Bible and whatnot, but when I had to go through my own personal life experiences, I was forced to apply those things that I've learned. You're not forced to apply the knowledge when you don't have wisdom, and the only way to obtain wisdom is through experience. Without experience, you have no wisdom. Without experience, you're not credible, so to speak. So you need experience for people to be like, oh, you did go do that. how can you tell somebody from point to A to B to C? How can I tell you how to go somewhere where I never been there myself? I need a GPS, just like you need a GPS to get there. But if I've been there already, I don't need a GPS to jail because I know how to get to jail because I've been to prison already. So if I can say something to you to help you avoid going to prison, I'll do that. And you start discovering, your gifts during childhood, right? And it's a gift when you try to ignore it, but it keeps coming back to you, right? Like, I can't turn off the little preacher in me. Like, even when we might be having a discussion about something in a street life or whatever, and people could tell just by alone when they hear me speak or whatever, they're like, oh, you always preaching, you sound like a preacher. Your gift is something that you can't just turn off. Like, you're a ball player, that's a gift that you're gonna always have. If you're a football player, that's a gift that you're always gonna have. Your gift can't be turned on, but I feel like you don't know how bright your light shines if you're not forced to walk through darkness.
Now, prison, how long you did time in prison?
I did 7 years in prison.
So 7 years during that time, your gift, because obviously you had, everybody don't come out the same.
Yeah.
Some people come out worse, some people come out better, but you developed in there, obviously, I can tell. Did you do a lot of reading? What some things that helped you in there? Like, what can you share with some people who are either experiencing it, because, everybody experiences prison and incarceration differently. What's some of the things that you did that helped you, and what's some of the things you did in there to, I guess?
Well, I started looking at, what made me look at like it different, right? It was a spiritual thing for me. I'm gonna break it down how in a way that other people can understand. But it was a spiritual thing for me, coming home doing the right thing. I used to have nightmares about my grandma, the Top Cat, when I was in prison. And in the dreams, I spoke about this on my book that's coming out too, called The Street Preacher. And in the dreams, every wrongdoing that I've committed, it triggered her cancer. Because in the dream, she still had cancer. And in the dream, me and her was walking, and I was crying because I had to help her walk. About this point, she was in her 60s, because if she still was living, she'd be in her 60s right now. And we was walking, and she was like, every wrongdoing that I do, it triggers her cancer. So it was a spiritual thing for me to come home and do the right thing. And also, I start connecting prison to the street life. Because a lot of people always say, oh, I don't want to go to jail, but the street life is a prison itself, because you isolated, you can't go certain places due to your affiliation with whoever you may be affiliated with. The outside world can be a prison too. Sometimes a lot of us be like, oh, how long you did in prison? Some of us did our whole lives in prison, and I've been to the facility before. Freedom is a state of mind. It's a mindset.
So how you was able to free yourself inside those walls?
I started freeing myself inside those walls because I understood the assignment, right? Far as, and then when I talked to my other great grandmother, Miss Jackson, you know her, and she was like, and I didn't speak to her for 4 years during the 7 years I did, because I was ashamed about being locked up, because she always looked at me as like this golden ticket or whatever. So I was always ashamed. She always had faith in me or whatever. We was closer than Big Mama and the little boy from Soul Food, that movie, right? So she said to me when we was on the phone, and this was our last conversation, she said, everything that you said you're gonna do, you're gonna do. And I said, yeah. She said, oh yeah, baby, because you had a good start. I think some of us, when you're in prison, your life start rewinding back. You start, your childhood memories, everything start going back to you. And what made me come home and do the right thing was because when you're in prison, you flash back to your childhood, you flash back to everything that happened in your life. And I was forced to have a flashback from where I started. And I knew the only way to sit there and come out strong on top and come out strong with a strong finish, and I'm far from my finish, is to go back to where I started. And that's what made me come home and do the things that I was doing.
You was a teenager when you went in there?
Yeah, I was a teenager when I went in there. I was 18 years old. Just turned 18.
Yeah, so that was your welcome to adulthood.
Yeah, I just turned 18.
I tell a lot of times some people go to prison, man, it's beneficial because the wisdom you get, being able to read, being able to think.
Malcolm X said if a black man doesn't go to prison, college, prison is the best thing for him. He said that in his autobiography. I read that too when I was locked up. I read a lot about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Like, I never read a hood book, believe it or not. I wrote a hood book, but I've never read a hood book, believe it or not. I read The Leadership Within You 2.0, The Mastery of Love, The Four Agreements. Yeah, I read that. I read, a lot about Dr. Martin Luther King. I read a lot about Malcolm X. Of course, I read the Final Call newspapers while I was in there. I did a lot of reading about Farrakhan, things like that. But I never read no hood book or nothing like that, no.
Just education, just spiritually feeding yourself, you know what I'm saying? Just learning the life and all that. You got a podcast out.
Yeah, Soul Food Sunday.
Talk about that.
I took a little break from Soul Food Sunday but everybody asked me to bring it back. The reason I named it Soul Food Sunday because somebody I was in jail with, in fact, named me the Street Preacher, right? He gave me that name, Street Preacher, or whatever. And then I seen a lot of people on the rails and stuff that be commenting under all the stuff that I be saying, and they be like the Street Preacher, they be like the voice of the streets or whatnot. So the Street Preacher is something that I went along with. And I know a lot of people that's in the streets don't go to church, so I made my podcast Soul Food Sunday. It's like hood church. It's where you get your inspiration every Sunday with the Street Preacher. That's why I named it Soul Food Sunday, because it's food for the soul.
And do you bring people on there to speak about whatever y'all speaking about? How's that?
Yeah, like my topics mainly be about the urban lifestyle, of course, as well as the need for escape, basically. I bring people up there that have goals and objectives, and they just break down what are the things they're doing and the sacrifices they're making in their everyday life to make those dreams and admirations come true. That's more so the story, to make to kind of remind everyone else not to give up on their dreams. So I bring people up there like underground rappers, I bring businessmen up there, other guys that do speaking for a living, other community leaders and things like that. That's what I bring up there. But I try to keep it hip because I know a lot of people will get bored fast. That's why I started bringing underground rappers and stuff in.
How do you, your generation at 7, you knew you was gonna be called to be a preacher. You the street preacher. You doing that. So how do you connect with the people out here in the city? How do you connect with the younger audience and talking about God and just incorporating scripture or prayer and applying that in their life?
Same way I always tell you, I humanize it, because you can't understand it. If I tell you Peter walked on water, you're going to be like, why did he walk on water? A lot of people sit there and tell you, a lot of Christians, in fact, will throw scriptures out there but won't break the scripture down. So when you throw a scripture out there, when you throw these characters out there that's in the Bible, and you don't back these things up with facts, and you don't back these things up with real life events, you're gonna bore people. Because let's be real, the youth attention span is not but so long, right? So you have to capture their attention, and how you capture their attention is, Peter walked on water. What happened that day Peter walked on water, let's say, for instance? Peter, he started to tumble and everything. Why? Because he started worrying about the storm, And I just apply that to them. If you start worrying about the things that's going on around you, you will fall. But if you sit there and look forward to things, you may make it to the other side. You say something like that, for instance, rather than say, oh, Peter. I believe, others might say, Peter walked on God's on the water when Jesus told him to come to him. But that water was, that meaning right there, he was walking on God's promise. And that's what I believe. I tell people all the time, he was walking on God's promise. People overlook the water situation with Peter. Peter was walking on God's promise. In that moment, that scripture was used, that story was used to tell us to trust God. Tell us to trust Jesus. That's what it's used for. You see how you got energy right there just off me saying that? That's how you got to talk to people. You can't just be like, yo, Peter walked on water. You're not even explaining why Peter walked on water.
That's what it is. It's trust, and he lost his faith. And anytime you lose your faith, because one thing, God, it's impossible to please him without faith. And having faith is not actually seeing what's there. If you know the check is going to come in the mail, if you got faith that check is coming in the mail, then you can't say, well, I'm going to wait till the check comes. That's not having faith. God is looking at that, the Spirit of God.
Because you know why it's hard for people to see things that they don't see? Because you have a bunch of people around them telling them that it's impossible because they don't see it, right? When you look at the Bible, when you look at it from a biblical standpoint, Jesus had all these people following him, but some others convinced others not to follow him. You know what I'm saying? So somebody might see something that you draw, and somebody might see the dream and the admiration. They could see that coming true. You could paint a clear picture to them, but when they get around certain individuals, they no longer see that picture, if that makes sense.
Those distractions.
Yeah.
Those distractions, man. What's some of the things you want to do, I guess, moving forward this summer? You ain't got to put your whole plan out there, but what's some of the things you want to accomplish, say, this year, with your program, your project, and your podcast?
I feel like, all right, look, like I said, I believe in baby steps for everything. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people come out here, right? No disrespect to no community leaders throughout New Jersey, in fact. I feel like a lot of us don't see results that we desperately want. And I don't even think it's because we don't have resources or nothing. We're not getting to the core of understanding things, right? We like to erase our past and be like, oh, I'm doing good, look at me. I'm gonna tell you about the rough days. I'm gonna tell you when I'm tempted to do something that I know I have no business doing. I'm gonna tell you that I'm not perfect. I'm gonna tell you there's some days that I still do things that I'm not supposed to do. I'm gonna tell you that. I'm gonna tell you, look, you don't have to be perfect to change, right? That's like church, for example. A lot of people run away from church, sad to say, because they feel that pressure of needing to be perfect.
Judgment.
So when you put that in front of people and you push the message with, you need to be perfect, people gonna run away from your message. Because you putting that on them, you putting that pressure on them that they have to be perfect. When you allow them to know your mistakes and you see the mistakes, that's the good beauty about me being a mentor, because I'm still young, so people can still see my mistakes. People can still see me say things I have no business saying. People can still see me do things and all that, so they don't feel judged. That's why it's an open door policy with me. But when you see Mr. Perfect coming up, it's like, hard boy, here he comes. You understand what I'm saying? So I feel like, what we could do better with our programming is understand trauma recovery. And the only way to understand trauma recovery is to embrace our own trauma. I feel like we run away from that. I feel like we don't express our own trauma when we're doing public speaking and whatnot. People go in front of people and always talk about how they can get through their problems, but you're not telling me how you went through yours. How can you help me get through my issues when you're not even explaining your issue to me? How you want me to be an open book to you when you're a closed book to me? You gotta share something to get something. You know what I'm saying? That's what I feel. I feel like, it's like fishing, for example. The fish only open his mouth when it got bait, but the fish only get caught when the fish open his mouth. If the fish don't open the mouth, the fish won't get caught. You can't get somebody up out of the water of misery if you don't sit there and give them that bait. Sometimes you gotta give people, look, this is what I've been through, and that makes somebody want to tell you what they've been through.
And I think the reality scripturally, what came to my mind when you were saying that, is we live a life of repentance. And when you know you live a life of repentance, like the Bible tells you, if any man say they have not sinned, they are a liar. They don't know God, and they are a liar for that. So when you live a life of repentance, that means we sin. We are sinners, and we sin each and every day. So when you wake up in the morning, and it's a certain pastor I used to watch, and I said the same thing you were saying. He never gave a story of none of his trials and tribulations. Like, you never had no sexual thoughts pop up in your head, although you was married for 60 years. So you never masturbated, bro. You never did none of these things.
You know why a lot of religious leaders, so to speak, or leaders in general, don't express things like that, is because we put leaders up on these pedestals too much, right? That's why I'm grateful for that I believe in God, right? Because when you believe in a higher power, you don't put others on pedestals. You understand what I'm saying? When you don't believe in God, all you have to look up to is people. So you put people on these pedestals that they don't deserve to be under, and then some of them never ever act for that. Like, for example, no true leader acts to be a leader. That was just in them. So the reason I'm speaking about this, because when you ask me what's my plan for the summer, my plan for the summer is trauma recovery. My plan for the summer is to speak about the gang culture. I feel like we run away from that. Nobody wants to speak about the gang culture, and a lot of violent crimes and a lot of things that are not being prevented throughout the city, throughout the state, is due to gang violence. And we gotta stop saying gang is red and blue. Even your block. If you claim your block, that's your gang. That's a part of the gang culture. And you got a lot of people that's in the streets like, man, I don't gang bang, but you are gang banging. You don't even know it, because if the very thing that you claiming, if it's not legit, then it's a game. That's how the feds look at it. That's how society looks at it. That's how the government views it. That's what it is.
From a citizen, I look at police officers as a gang culture as well, because they have a certain culture where they don't really communicate with the community like they used to. It's like a us against y'all type of thing. It's like the military could be like that, even in the military.
Yeah, but those gangs that have protection. Yeah, if that makes sense, right? When you look at these street gangs, they don't have protection. When you look at street gangs, we always want to say, "Oh, protect yourself from your op, or protect yourself from the police officers, or protect yourself from this, protect yourself from that." But when you are going to get to a point when you are taught to protect yourself against real life hardships, when you give people an outlook on a different outlook on things, and say, it's not always about, hey, they did this to us, we do that to them. But if we get ourselves up out of these environments, then we won't have nobody will have the space or the opportunity to do certain things to us. If you keep in mind the dream and the objective. Once you miss the objective, you missed everything. It's pointless. That's what I believe.
So what are some of the things, some suggestions you have or some ideas you feel like not to speed up the process, but everybody can start working together to accomplish this. You know what you try to attach the trauma and the things that people been in the community. What are some resources? I can think of like mental health people coming in there talking stuff like that. But like, what are some of the things you would want? You know,
I feel like I feel like it's not impossible. I think it's very much possible, and I think it's far from difficult. You know, I feel like Just let me be blunt, right? Because I'm very blunt on my show. I don't know about your show, but very blunt on mine. The community leaders need to stop being gangsters. When I say gangsters, like, I'm not talking about being in your hood. I'm talking about you got community leaders, so to speak. Whatever happened back in the day, you got a person that's a community leader, whatever. They attend to one area, but won't attend to my area because they might have an issue with me. But me personally, I want to put my issue to the side with someone to focus on bettering my community. When I'm not talking about two ops beefing, I'm talking about political war. People, a lot of community work, a lot of people are not aware it becomes political. And political enemies, they become divided. You know what I'm saying? We have a disagreement with somebody, now they don't want to come down there and do what they're supposed to do. Or I have a disagreement with somebody, now I want to go up there and do what I need to be doing up there. That's not, when I say that, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about somebody that shoot at somebody and somebody that shoot at somebody. I'm talking about political feuds. I'm talking about political enemies. Don't sit there, and the politicians need to start walking through the neighborhoods and start walking through the neighborhoods separately. Let us see y'all together. I want to hear from you what you could do for us, and because we're not going to these debates. We're not listening to those debates or nothing like that. I'm not saying debate in front of us, but together. What happened to a long time ago when politicians used to get together and meet in front of the community together? I think things like that need to be happening. You got mentors and so to speak, and non-profits and things that work under these political figures that create their own circle. That's like me and you. Me and you start something together. And now we don't like them for political issues or whatever it is. Now we divided out. They don't want to come help us, and then we don't want to come help them. And then when you do that, you're keeping everything stagnant. We stagnating them in a sense, and they're stagnating us because we're not bringing our resources together. I think that's what we need to do, because resources are more powerful than everything that's going on in the streets. When you give people a way out, then they don't have everything stops, But I feel like the community leaders, the resources, the mentors, the non-profits, all those need to come together, if that makes sense to you. You know what I'm saying? All those need to come together. I always say, like, what happened to all the non-profits doing something big at a park, like Liberty State Park or Lincoln Park? And somebody might see this idea, and right now, y'all better give me credit for it because it's stated. They won't. They'll do that right now. I give you the idea. They'll do that, but leave Myami and God projects out.
Yeah, leave you out.
And leave me out.
Yep.
And I think that's what we need to do. We need to stop leaving people out of being rewarded for the results. Not that we do what we do for recognition, but you could put me front page for one thing. Why can't you sit there and even write a post about me or whatever it is and give me my flowers while I'm here? I think that's what the community leaders need to come together. I feel like that's why in the North culture, that's why North see better results than us. That's why they see that they programs see more money than us. They defunded the police out there and everything. They see more money out there because if you pay attention, you got organizations like New Direction, and you got One Hood, and all these organizations that's out there from North. They all together. Every time you see them together, they protest together. They do everything together. When you look at everything that's going on out here in Jersey City, everything's so divided. They doing this, we doing that.
I ain't lying about that.
It's that simple. Instead of doing a book bag drive down Myami, why we can't bring the book bags to Lincoln Park? We have our table, they have their table. You force the kids to grow up with each other so you avoid down the line beef, if that makes sense to you,
I think more sports programs will help that too. We used to have sports programs, people doing things within the community, and also not even being organized. You know what I mean? We used to do that. Go ahead, go play this. Go ahead, go play this block. Go ahead, go play Curry Woods. Go down, go play. We're gonna play Randolph and Carteret.
I just feel like once they do that, and everybody come together, right? And I'm talking about community leaders.
Yeah.
Once community leaders come together, I feel like everything in Jersey City will be better. But community leaders don't come together. Right now, when the issue is taking place, and pardon me for publicly speaking about it, but you got community leaders that be so hyped and so honored to be around certain political figures. They give these political figures credit for the work that we do. The non-profits and the organization and the mentors and people that work violent prevention and trauma recovery. They give these political figures, and they're not putting the footwork in. Hell, some of these political figures that have it don't even put the finances behind it. Some of us, like you, for instance, when you was talking on your when we did interview the other time. That's a lot of people don't even know. A lot of people out here, they see programs like mine and all that. People are not aware that people use their own personal money or whatnot. So why would I have a political figure around me and give them credit for all the hard work that people in my community are doing? The mothers, the grandmothers, the guardians that are allowing me to, somewhat, speak to their youth or whatnot and giving me that trust. You know what I'm saying?
Like, you can say whatever you want to say, but speaking on that actually happened. Beginning of this year, when we start this cleanup, you know what I'm saying? I went to one of them talks, coffee with the person running for mayor. It was Jim McGreevy, you know what I'm saying? Before I got there, he actually did a video and posted it. It's now taken down, but he actually did a video and posted it like he was taking credit for the cleaning that we did with Cheese, and we organized that cleaning. So he went on there with his 2 councilmen, and he used my man as a pawn and say like he was the volunteer and like he was running the program. So there's real life things that's happening that people really do that.
You see that happen, but you have people that be so hyped up to be around them. So you didn't allow them to do that to you, right? But you got people that's around that want to be so happy. Like for instance, it was Jersey City 2024 was no homicides, right? They didn't get Marion recognition from that. How the hell Marion Gardens don't get no recognition for it being 0 homicides for the summer when Marion Gardens, it shows when most of the crimes that were committed came from that area. So now that the crime decreased, how y'all not give us how you not give us some type of recognition for that? How you just block us out, but as soon as we do something bad, you see 18 gang members indicted in Marion Gardens housing complex. So you see, you know what I'm saying? They put us front page for that, and then y'all block us out, and then act like we don't exist. It's so real that it took people from outside the city to give us our flowers, and not saying that we're doing it for those things, but when you give us recognition when it's something bad, and then you don't give us recognition for something good, and then y'all put these political figures out here when they're not the one. All right, the only thing a political figure can get credit for is, let's say, the police out here, law enforcement. So if you want, I'm not about to sit in front of camera and smile at you that such and such a percent of a black man been incarcerated. I'm not about to sit in the picture and smile at you with that. If y'all want to take credit, it's not because of the program y'all put out there, because y'all didn't put no program out there. The only credit y'all could take is taking certain people that committed certain crimes off the streets. That's what y'all can take credit for. But how long does that even matter? Because it's always an upcoming generation. And who do you think is stopping these upcoming generations from doing certain things together? It's the community leaders. It's these young men themselves. I feel like the hell with just honoring this person, the hell with just honoring me. Anybody that put their name on a sign-in sheet that came to my program, they deserve some type of medal or whatnot for the violence going down. Don't just shake my hand and tell me, but Pete, you got community leaders that's like this. They become egotistic. Oh, look at me. What about the organization? When you honor these people, invite their youth and whoever are part of their program, their staff, or whatever it is, to those community events. Not just the leaders. I don't give a damn if it take long. That's just like I went to my cousin college graduation. It was like 4 hours for kids to walk across the stage. I don't care if we gotta do something like that when you get a big venue and you honor organizations together. I don't care if everybody gotta get pat down just to make sure it's a safety issue. No safety, it won't be a safety issue. But my point is, when we sit there and reward people, it makes them want to do more. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's why a lot of good things don't happen in the community, because we reward our political figures. We reward people that walk in the suits too much. What about the guy that jumped in the front of the bullet last week and stopped with the hoodie on that stopped somebody from, doing something crazy or whatnot? Or what about the young man that came home and changed his life? And not just me and not just the leader. I'm just talking about anybody. You know what I'm saying? What happened to that? You put them in juvenile detention centers when they do something wrong. So what do they get when they do something good? I feel like when it was 0% homicides, and that summer of Jersey City 2024 summer, I feel like every neighborhood should have got a cookout. It should have been a ceremony in every neighborhood, not just one neighborhood. It should have been a ceremony in every neighborhood. Marion Gardens should have got their own recognition, and this project should have got their own recognition, and that block should have got their own recognition. I feel like those political figures should have went on a Jersey City tour and gave every single Y'all got us on the map.
That would have motivated everybody to keep.
But y'all got
it.
us on these maps, on Google Maps. Y'all got us as gang territory and everything. It's labeled as all this is labeled as gang territory. I'm not just saying this. You can look all these things up. So all these blocks that y'all have labeled as gang territories, and that y'all see didn't commit any crimes, no serious crimes such as homicides. Why didn't y'all go to each neighborhood and make sure every neighborhood had their own ceremony?
They just took the recognition for themselves.
And just took the recognition and took the recognition for themselves. So it make you feel like everything you're doing is worthless. You know what I'm saying? When no one put the money behind it or nothing like that. But you got people that's so eager with being around these people, they don't correct them. They allow them to take that recognition. They allow them to take that credit for that. But you know, I felt disrespected. But you know, we don't do it for that. So I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and my neighborhood gonna keep pushing for what we pushing for. But I just feel like it was very disrespectful because you put us out there when we do bad things, and then when we do good things, it's like, so what? You get what I'm saying?
You definitely gotta have that's something I've been talking to him, especially running with Cheese that's going for mayor. Like I've definitely talked to Bill O'Day, Jim McGreevy, and Cheese. You know, I ain't speak to the other candidates, but like I told them, y'all gotta do stuff different. Y'all don't work together. Y'all get up there, Democrat, Republican, going against each other. You know what I'm saying? And then y'all just putting out stuff just to go against each other, knowing it's harmful to the people. But you don't want to support it because that person is doing it. You know what I'm saying? If you're doing something positive and it's for the people or whatever, that's going to benefit all my children as well. Because if my kids out here, I want my kids to be in a safe environment. My family come visit, I want them to be in a safe environment or community that has resources or they know who to look to, what mentors is in there, you know, if they having trouble or how to fix something.
The resources is pointless when the resources are not together, right?
Yep.
That's like even in government, right? They have different branches, right? With government, you got all these different branches and all that. That's how the country's being ran, right? And I feel like, you know, you gotta look at the city like a country, right? When you look at it like, oh, just Jersey City, I'm running for mayor, when you don't look at it like its own constitution, when you don't look at it like a country, you lost the game already anyway, you know what I'm saying? First and foremost, anybody that's running for mayor, I feel like they should get in touch with all the nonprofits. I feel like this race, everybody running for city council, everyone's running for mayor, whatever it is, I feel like the youth's supposed to be the main focus. That's just me, you know, because where the city funding going at? Y'all talk about affordable housing, but y'all been talking about selling that false hope. Y'all got these developers coming up here. That's the topic that's bigger than the mayor. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's just honestly speaking. So y'all know that's a topic that's bigger than the mayor, but y'all keep pushing that and bringing that in front of us, knowing that, like, you know, it's only so much that y'all could do about that. I feel like the main focus should be the youth, you know, because that's when things go wrong, when you don't focus on the youth. That's when all the crime rate and everything goes back up, you know what I'm saying? And they know that. When you talk about developers, whatever you're talking about, they know nothing can happen without the crime rate determines everything. That's why I feel like the youth should be the focus more of the story.
They're the leaders,
Yeah.
you know, and to me, I lived in San Diego for 3 years. That's a beautiful city, family oriented. You know, it's focused around families. It's focused around youth. When you see people, just in general, you start to think different. It's like when a mother has a child. You know, when a mother has a child, most mothers change their life. You know, now they got this child in their stomach developing. They got to change their life. They don't know how they gonna feed their child. They might have been going on this direction, but they might change to go this direction. It helps a father as well. When I first had my daughter, it changed my perspective, my view on things, because now I have a daughter. Now I got a son. Now I got a family responsibility. So yeah, focusing on the youth will change people from building. Like I tell people, Jersey got too many smoke shops. You know what I'm saying? We got not enough things for kids.
Who going to the smoke shop more than anybody?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, the youth. Young people. You go to these shows, it's young people. It's not people your age.
Yeah.
It's young people going to the smoke shops more than anybody. The youth. I remember somebody in Hoboken, I don't know where he at right now, I forgot, but I know that's his thing. He had a little clothing line called the Youth Rules Tomorrow, right? And that just always ran with me. And I didn't see this guy since 2015. But that always ran with me, the Youth Rules Tomorrow. The youth determines everything. That's why I feel like the youth should be the focus. And people might be like, oh, you just saying that because of what you got going on. Nah, it really determines everything. That's who spend the most money. Let's be real. That's who go to all of the small businesses. It's youth. You got the elderly people. Everybody tend to them, but you know why everybody tend to the elderly people? Because the elderly people are the ones that's voting. That's why you see politicians giving out flowers to the elderly. I'm sorry for putting everybody on the spot, but you know what I'm saying? That's why you see them doing everything for the elderly, because the elderly women are the ones that's gonna go. They're the ones that's on the board. In fact, when you go to the schools, the community, they're the ones that do everything. You know them talking about the board when they do the voter registration. It's the elderly. That's why they tend to the elderly more than everybody. It ain't got nothing to do with respecting them because they're seniors. It has nothing to do because what they did in their past. It has nothing to do with
That's why the politicians go to the police stations, and you see them taking pictures in churches, and you just see them taking pictures.
But where all these people at? You go to church right now, you see nothing but a whole bunch of old black women with big hats. Right? So, you know what I'm saying? But you get what I'm saying? But that's the audience they tend to. They're not going. You don't see these politicians during election time going to the Boys and Girls Club. You don't see them go to a school and get an auditorium full of students to speak to. You don't see them talking to community organizers, the community organization, because that don't control the vote. But if you could convince more younger people to vote, that's what should have been the the focus of this election. If you could convince more young people to vote, then you know what I'm saying?
Get them something to vote for.
Right, and I feel like, and I know I was playing when I said something about the church hat.
Nah, you serious.
But that's what you see though.
It's real.
That's real. Like somebody might not like what I said, but it's real because
it's real. That's true.
Even church don't tend to the young people.
Nah.
You know, like young people got Sunday school, but that's for like babies. When I talk about youth, I'm talking about from 16 to 24, right? Because those are the ages most that we need to focus on more than ever. They don't have nothing in churches. What happened in churches should have with these dollars and these tax dollars that churches get. They should have programs for the youth to incorporate the youth into their program. When you sit into what's going on in church, point blank period. They don't have programs for the youth at church. You know, you got Sunday, you got the revivals, and you got this, and you got that. But I don't see no
we
church.
We just got a lot of churches that don't got nothing. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, but
some of them do, but we got a lot of churches.
But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, we got a lot of churches. But if you have churches to work with community organizations, the churches could be funded better. They could be funded better than everything like that, you know, if the churches do decide to work with community organizations. But even churches not a part of the communities no more, right? Growing up, we had this Pastor Lanier. He used to, literally, when things used to go wrong in the projects, he used to literally go across the street and go over there and pray for people. And sometimes even bring the speaker to the podium out and nothing like that. I don't remember the last time I seen a pastor walking around shaking hands and talking to people. Why do you think a lot of people converted to Islam? Because the Islamics, they're willing to go to the people. Once you start going to the people, you lost the people. Because the people ain't going to always come to you. You can't just tell them God's house is open to everybody and think the people just going to come. You got to go to the people. Jesus went to the people in the Bible. You understand what I'm saying? And I feel like once, and you see, look at and not to compare, the mosques. Look what they do. Donate food every week. They got good stuff in there too. I see them unloading trucks and things like that. Their money is going in the right places because they're working with all these different organizations. You understand what I'm saying? I feel like, sad to say, I'm Christian, so I mean no disrespect by saying this, but the Christian community, they completely, like, in a sense, distance themselves from the community. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying from what I observed. You get what I'm saying?
That's been observed. Your observation is correct. It's like that in California. I've been there. I lived in Memphis. It's like that in Memphis. It's like that in Florida. And it's a scripture for Christians. You know what I'm saying? Like the lamp. He don't tell us to stay in the house. We have to go outside. And I think during the process of spirituality, anybody going through something, remember, they already got their own demons that they dealing with. They cross over. Now they don't want to listen to this music no more. They don't want to talk to these people no more. So they distance themselves from people, but not realizing that Jesus said, He's here for the sick. And the sick people is the people that doesn't have the word, that's not saved.
Like, it speaks for itself, right? When I have my birthday party, I want everybody to go all black, and I want everybody to have button-up shirts or whatever. Because a lot of young black men don't even put a suit on until they die. The day of their funeral will be the first time they put a suit on outside of prom. Some of them don't get that because they drop out of school, so some of them don't get prom. So a lot of them, first time them wearing a suit is when they're in the casket. A lot of them, first time being preached to is when they're in the casket already. How could you sit there and avoid the people? If one of these young boys get killed right now, 9 out of 10, it could be a young boy right here. He could say he's Muslim all he wants. These folks gonna bury him like a Christian. How many times you seen people say they Muslim and they got buried like a Christian anyway? Or they had a whole Christian ceremony anyway. Moral of the story, what I'm trying to say is, you need the pastors to be back out here. Some people need that spiritual guidance. You know what I'm saying? Because without that spiritual guidance, you know, and that you know, churches need to become safe spaces again. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel. I feel like churches are not safe spaces. People see preachers and go the other way. I feel like if the churches, like not even if they don't want to use their own dollar, right? If they even allow the community organizations to use their own dollar, but if they allow us to utilize their spaces, you know, I feel like that they can be included a little bit more. You know, if I'm making, you're
making perfect sense. Like I just had a conversation about utilizing the church space.
Yeah.
So yes, you're making perfect sense, and it's aligned with God. It's aligned with what God wants, not what the pastor wants, not with the people who run in the church, because that's that's God's organization. He put somebody to steward that. He put somebody to be responsible for that, to take care of the people. So everything you're saying,
and I'm not downplaying nobody's religion or anything like that. You know, when I speak about the Muslim community and what they're doing, but every time I turn around, they gotta give back. You know what I'm saying? And then when you in our churches, you don't really hear like growing up. You heard that a lot. Oh, the church is doing this, the church is doing that. So we were kind of that was our way to being forced to church because everything was going on in church. Remember, people used to get dressed for Easter to actually go to church. Now people get dressed for Easter just to go to the movies or go skating. People celebrate Easter, don't even know what Easter is for. You know what I'm saying? Those days forced us into the church. The church doing something for Christmas. Growing up, this lady named Miss Liv, she used to have the puppet shows when I was a kid. You know, once the churches stopped doing things like that, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Everything start going downhill in the community. I feel like people don't understand the businesses, even the small businesses, control the communities. This is why I said everybody need to come together. The mentors, the stores, the churches, everything. You know what I'm saying? Cause when you got everybody coming together, then you'll see better results. For instance, you got, let's say, like, you know, and that's why I build relationships with everybody. You know what I'm saying? Even if I might not like you personally, but I never close my door to do business with you, because what me and you could stop something crazy from happening. Or what me and you could do, and we could be a support to each other in some sort of way. Then I'm with that. You know what I'm saying? But you got a lot of people that be dealing with pride. That's why you might see me with this person and that person. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't. People get too personal and feel like, you know, you owe them a certain loyalty when the work should be where the loyalty lies. So that's how I feel. I feel like once you incorporate the small businesses in the area, just like right here, us doing this right here, having this powerful conversation under this roof right here. Once the organizations and the small businesses work together, everything will be better. Right now, if you want to give out that shit for the winter time and you want to do a coke drive, a lot of people can't even do events because they have no venue to host these events and things like that. If the small businesses give back, because the community constantly gives to the businesses right in the area, but a lot of businesses don't give back. Stores and stuff should have their own toy drives, and stores and stuff should have their own book bag drives and everything like that as well, because you take all these people money throughout the whole year.
I think every business that's in every community should have some type of community program.
If not, work with one.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like in my area, you know, we were fortunate enough to have the guy that owned a store that way work with me before, you know what I'm saying? So I'm forever grateful for him, shout out to him. But, you know, like, I feel like the stores and everything need to work with the community, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like we can just get better results if everybody work with everybody, you know what I'm saying? Whether it be religious leaders, whatever it be. We need to start having, that's why, and everybody get mad at me when we compare North to Jersey City a lot. If you pay attention, if you look at North leaders, they're connected like this. Like, they're like glue out there, right? No, seriously.
Yeah.
They like glue out there. You'll see a
North and East Orange mayors work together to do events. They did a 24-hour piece.
Not just that, and you got people that have violent prevention programs that actually have meetings in churches out there in North. You have people with violent prevention programs that work with religious leaders, and you have people with violent prevention programs that work with stores. They work with laundromats. They work with all these different things, and they all bring these together, and that's why they're seeing the results that they see. You know what I'm saying? North used to, come on, you know my line. North was way crazier a few years back than what it is now. And Jersey City, it could get there if everybody like works together. Right? Say this, you know. Everybody work together, we'll get some.
I think the most difficult part about Jersey City and North, just looking at it, we have more people coming from the outside, from other countries. We have a lot more foreigners coming to the city.
Yeah, we're more diverse.
Because New York is right there, and there's a lot of different people bringing in ideas. Like when I walk downtown, most of those people that's working, even in those shops that's downtown, they're not even from here.
All right, but look, if you got people like, all right, now let me just give me my counter to saying what you're saying. So if you got people coming from New York and all these things like that, right? Mm-hmm. That's one thing about a diverse community, right? That Jersey City is. Mm-hmm. People, whether they come from different countries or whatever they're coming from, when I do community events, they come outside. Mm-hmm. People gonna do what you allow them to do. If you educate them more on what's mm-hmm. going on, and when you educate them more on the issues, mm-hmm. they could be a part of the solution. Mm-hmm. But a lot of us don't educate people on the issues. We just, a lot of, like I said, back to the political figures, they just go in front of the people asking for a vote. They don't tell them what's going on in Jersey City. You know, they're not aware of what's going on. They might hear about it, of course, because they moved over here, but they're not really mm-hmm. included. Everybody just going to everybody so everybody could just go to the ballot and just say their name. You know what I'm saying? But nobody's saying, look, this is what's going on, and this is my plan to solve it. You know what I'm saying? Nobody not going to. If you got people that's coming from outside, you gotta have ways to include them. Mm-hmm. Neighborhoods gotta come back with neighborhood meetings and things like that. Those people are gonna come outside for those meetings a bit. Because when you do community events, you see them everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Right now, you do something at Lincoln Park right now, they're gonna come out. So they need to have more community meetings and stuff like that. Because they do community meetings, but those community meetings be limited to a board, mm-hmm. right? And it's the problem with Myami Gardens, like, so to speak. And somebody might not like me saying this, but I'm gonna be real. I feel like when Myami Gardens do the community meetings, it should not just be for board members or residents. It should be for the church because the church is right across the street. The mm-hmm. church should be allowed to be at those community meetings. People like me, everything in the community should be allowed to be there. Mm-hmm. The mentors, everything like me. My name out on nobody lease down there. I'm not no resident or whatever. But I got a program down there that I run in the community center. I should be allowed to be at those meetings.
You should be at the meetings.
You know what I'm saying? So, but they don't have that. I feel like people that tend to the communities should be, so to speak, they should be able to have their voice heard because, hey, if you pay attention, you say it's not by outsiders, but outsiders the only ones that's coming up with solutions. It's mm-hmm. not the people that's in the community no more. Because look at you. You left Jersey City and you ain't come back for years, and now you back and you trying to do whatever you doing. Mm-hmm. So, and some people might look at you as an outsider to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And no disrespect, but it's outsiders the ones that's trying to bring the solution. So you gotta bring them in on the issue. You mm-hmm. can't just not bring them in on the issue. You don't know what nobody be knowing. People only know what's told us. We don't be knowing what's really going on mm-hmm. Because we're not at those meetings and we're excluded from the meetings. But we always include them when it's time for a big festival, when it's time mm-hmm. for this, when it's time for that. We're included. But when everybody whispering, everybody talking, we're not included in those things. Mm-hmm. But those same that board or whatever, they won't work with a non-profit that's doing things for the projects or whatnot, but they'll work for a political figure. You see what
position probably.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If I go down there and I have a give back, I have a giveaway or whatever, mm-hmm. nobody won't tell me this directly, but like, who do you think he is? But a politician go down there and give you the bare minimum. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you are
outside taking pictures and tent up and everything. There's a whole parade out there.
Or that right now when we do things, because I did 2 big events down there and I had permission to do those two big events. And then I did when I did my 2 big events, I did my first annual hot dogs on Monday, mm-hmm. and I did my second annual hot dogs on Monday even bigger, mm-hmm. right? And then then we had a little situation with the Marion Day thing. That's why I'm bringing this up. For instance, if a politician want to go out there and do something and do an event and all like that, it happens just like that.
But we got a lot of
such as running for mayor, they get a tent just like that on the table just like that. But if it's a person that's actually from that community, know that real issues in the community, mm-hmm. not just statistics, but actually know what's really going on. Mm-hmm. It's always safety, it's always this, it's always that, it's always this, it's always that.
Y'all never had solutions.
These people be around each other in this community anyway. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. But when a politician come around, it's always, they could do this, they could do that. And then when people that are actually from these areas attempt to do things, certain people, they separate themselves from that. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody want to be a part of the footwork. Mm-hmm. Because part of this work is work of redemption. When, you know, people got backstories. Some of them do this work because it's their redemption story. So that's why a lot of them do this work, because it's their redemption story. Nobody wants to be a part of that. People want to come to you already when you squeaky clean. They don't want to be a part of the phases of cleaning you up. I noticed that, and that's why I'm grateful for some of the people that was and came when I came home, that opened me with open arms when I popped out. We got more people working with me now, but when I first came home, certain people didn't want to be bothered because people sit there and whisper, "Let's see how long he really do this." You get what I'm saying? But not knowing if you include yourself, that might make me even do it.
Yeah, I might be more motivated.
Yeah,
to do
that
it.
might.
My results gonna be better.
That might give me a boost, but people don't look at it like that. People always wait to see what something bad like. Just like we could do something wrong any day now. Politicians could do something wrong any day now. The hell, you got a president of the United States running. You got pardon me. You got the president right now that got a federal indictment. Yeah. That's the president of the United States right now. Nobody asking no questions, but when it's us, you know what I mean? When it's us, it's always, how you doing that? And he just came from jail, or and he just did this, or and he just said that, but nobody say that. How many people, you got elected officials right now sitting in Congress and all that speak facts. You got people right now that's in city council, Jersey City, that's under certain investigations.
You got people in council that has all kinds of cases with them. You can look that up. They show you our Congress. These people got these charges. This charge.
Right now, if I catch a DUI, right? I don't drive, but let's say if I catch a DUI right now, it'll be a big issue. I told you so. He ain't changed. But a typical politician catch a DUI right now, it'd be like, oh, Johnny was high. Oh, Johnny was drunk. You get what I'm saying? But those are conversations we are uncomfortable to have in our community. People they'll hold us accountable due to our past, but they won't hold certain people accountable. People make excuses for certain people, if that makes sense to you. We got to a point where we feel threatened by our own people because we're not forced to deal with each other. I feel like they need to come up with different settings and different events and things like that for us to be forced more into dealing with each other. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I feel. I feel like if I was a president of a residential board for residents in the area, right? I would include everybody that's in that community as part of those meetings.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know what I'm saying? That's just me, man.
So mainly it takes a village, us working together, you know, and just pushing the work, because we is doing the work. With the podcasts that we do, with the events that we doing, you know, we cracking the scales a little bit. We got Delicious Juice Bar. They do community events. They allow people to come in here and play games, work on things, stuff like that. He's from the community. We have Cheese. Cheese lets people go in there and do podcasts, teach people about printing. He's also about the program. We have somebody from downtown Jersey City running a PAL program with his wife right now, E. And he's doing that. They doing that on their own. They don't have no support from the, you know, they get their grants and stuff like that because they non-profit. But they started from the ground up. You know, they was in a struggling position. Now they in a better position where they helping kids. I mean, from what I see, from back even when I try to come 3 years ago, and even 10 years ago when I try to come back to, you know, bring some resources here, I see now that time is changing. Yeah. And it's starting with what we doing. You know, the cleanup, Garden State Radio, us helping each other. King David and his church right there on Bergen Avenue. They got the Men with a Vision meeting. So that's for everybody, by the way. You know, to come in there, all men from all different backgrounds, going there, just chop it up and talk. But it's also what you saying. It's us putting those resources, actually communicating, because there's so many people here. There's almost 500,000 people here, probably close to it. I'm probably off with the number in Jersey City. But at the end of the day, like, having a place that, like you said, coming out here and talking to us, see what's going on. And that involves the politicians, the police officers, the firefighters. Because honestly, I don't see none of that stuff that was back in the day.
All right, but you see, for example, right? They got all this sit-down, coffee, meet and Greek and all that.
At 8 o'clock.
No, like, they got all this, right? Especially on work days, too.
Yeah,
whatever. They got all these sit and meet and Greek and whatever they want to call it, right? They should have stuff like that when they're elected too. While you in office, why do people? I know they say you can go down City Hall and complain and all this, and maybe have little meetings and all that, but you should still, right, as the elected official, at least have one person, whoever it is, that's on that council board, they should be going to these community meetings as well. You know what I'm saying? And being included so people could directly tell them what's going on. Because a lot of people don't look at city issues as issues for their section, if that makes sense. Because everybody in their own little section. You got the Myami Garden section, you got this section, you got that section. So everybody have their own concerns. People going to different school districts and everything. So everyone has their own concerns. So I feel like, you know, people should come out to the communities and ask directly to people, just like they do when they're elected, what the issues are. They should do that with it while they're in office too. You know what I'm saying? They should
not
be
just
more,
for show to get the votes.
It should be more meet and greets as well. When you know, but
that's what we gotta do. We gotta go. You know, when I say we, people like you and I, not just you and I, you know, doing.
I know you're saying everybody.
Yeah, we gotta teach them sometimes. You know, especially the old, you gotta teach. You gotta get ideas. And sometimes, even them being in that position, when I see people in a position for a certain amount of time, they only think one way. They don't know how to think outside the box. They don't even listen to the younger generation. I'm 42. I listen to the younger generation, and I listen to the older generation. I could sit there and talk to a 7-year-old, and I interviewed a 9-year-old person before. When she was 9, she's an artist. When I interviewed her, there's so much that I learned from her. She was talking about unpacking things, and that means she had too many responsibilities. She was going to school. She did over 200 shows in 2 years. Her parents was there, but she said that at that age, and I'm sitting there listening to her. You know, I'm sitting there listening to her, River Bay. And I'm like, yo, I learned a lot. And she taught everybody, like, you know, focus on, because she got the bright ideas. Like like you said earlier, the people who's coming in, when I said that, you know, that's the reason why things ain't like North, but you gave a positive insight to it. Those are people who's gonna help and come out support. Because they have a clearer view, a clearer vision. And sometimes it takes us to leave this area to come back to see, okay, all right, now I see.
Those people be a part of this, because those people don't have no baggage with Jersey City, right? Like when you got newcomers, they don't have specific people that they don't like. They don't have nothing going on. They don't got no drama, nothing like that. They really not included in that stuff. So when you do see community flyers and things like that, most of those people that come on are outsiders that just moved, or newcomers or whatnot. So I feel like, you know, if you have more community meetings that include everyone, you know, more, I keep repeating myself, because I feel like more could be done when you do it that way.
I feel like we're gonna do that, man. I see great things happening, you know, for your podcast. Of course, it's already happening. You're already doing the work. I commend you what you're doing, you know, for the project, for the city. I got you. You got my support. You know, anytime you want to put out some information, bigger than open mic, you already know what it is. You know, I'm just a phone call away, text away. Thank you for Raven for the support. You know what I'm saying? She just released her book as well for Marion. So there is people. I'm from Marion, you're from Marion, she's from Marion. There is people, you know, outside of that that's doing positive things that's not highlighted. You know what I mean? That's the point of the podcast, to highlight the things that we are doing, highlight places like this that people come. I didn't even know this spot.
Yeah, this is my first time here.
You know, this dope, man. This is fire, you know what I'm saying? He do a lot of things here. And it's about also those resources, putting them in places that is available to view. Because even if there's a lot of resources and we all working as individuals and we're not working together, we're not really grabbing the audience that we need to grab, like you saying. So everything that you saying, that needs to happen. It needs to be a village. And they need to come out and talk. They can't just come out here, you know, during election season and just show face. Because one thing, real people recognize that. We don't know that. You know what I'm saying? People with discernment, people of God, you know what I'm saying? We place that above all things, and even the community, like you said, the Muslim community. We all can learn. Christians can learn from Muslims and how they, you know, give back to the community. Why people is joining this, you know, joining it. Why people are doing these things. We need to learn from that. We need to learn from Newark. Jersey City need to learn from Newark. You know, take the pride away, not copying, but if somebody has the blueprint, and you have the blueprint for a lot of things, and I see it. If you put it in play, I'm gonna back it up. I don't care how old you is, what organization it is, because it's serving the same purpose, man. So I appreciate that. You know what I mean? I commend you for that. Where's some I guess what's up? Tell me about some of the social media pages. You say you had a book. How can they find that?
Yeah, I got a book called The Street Preacher that'll be released September.
Okay.
It's called The Street Preacher. You know, it's about me. You heard it's autobiography. It's called The Street Preacher. I'm going deep into my childhood. I'm going deep into prison things that I didn't mention in interviews. You know, since everybody asking, I didn't want to do that book, but everybody asking, because I wrote other books, but everybody was like, oh, we want to hear a book. Everybody want to read a book about me, so that's why I'm doing it. It's called The Street Preacher. It's going to give you every, you know, insight on everything. You know, I cut no corners when I speak, so it's all in there. And as well as, if you read it the right way, it's something you can learn from as well. It give you insight, you know, and the book really focuses on trauma recovery, to say the least. As well as, I got another project being published around that same time called Need an Escape. That's a love novel. Yeah, that's a love novel. That's fire too. And you can find me on DAÉ-1 TV, DAE1_TV. That's my page on Instagram. As well as you can find me on Facebook as well. DAÉ-1, DAEONE TV. I'm on Facebook. And that's what I'm really focused on. I'm coming back out with Soul Food Sunday. And anybody that want to contribute to anything of my organization, you can always email me at ubomotivation@gmail.com as well. If you want to, if you have questions about how you can help, we're willing to take the help and the assistance. You know, I'm willing to work with anybody that, you know, that's genuine, has a pure heart, that's willing to make the community and everything around us better.
Yup. So audiences listening, resources is key. Working together is key. This brother is doing a lot of good work. So like you said, hit him up on the email. And contributions doesn't always have to be finances.
No,
it could be time. It could be a repost. You know, it could be a flyer that's, oh, you know, I can see it could be a little bit better. It could be utilizing some of your skills to help building some of the things. Like, and you know, think deeper. But we got plumbers, electricians, and we got people in the community who don't have funding to replace even some critical items that they need to live. So getting with him, people like that in the community, he knows what's going on in the community, the resources and things that they need. And like I said, it doesn't always have to be finances. It just could be your time. It could you be coming out. And sometimes it is finances, food, you know, excess things that people have. Because sometimes you might have something that's excess, and somebody might need that to live, and you don't even need it. You know, so we gotta start looking at things like that, man. So I appreciate you, bro.
Thanks.
You know what I mean? Anything else you want to tell them?
Nope, until next time. You'll see me with this guy again.
All right, peace.